Hello and welcome to Volume 5 of Steaming Around Britain, our unique regional guide to steam action. This programme highlights the Midlands. As usual, we feature working steam in the 1960s, contrasted with today's heritage steam scene, and briefly rounded off with a look at some modern motive power. We start with rare archive film taking us back to the glory days when steam was an everyday event in both the East and West Midlands. Stafford Road Shed, Wolverhampton, was a key depot on the former Great Western Mainline from Paddington to Shrewsbury and Birkenhead. Originally built for the broad gauge, Stafford Road had an allocation covering all the Great Western Express passenger types. Near the depot stood the locomotive works, which once built new machines and survived as a repair shop until 1964, when both works and shed closed. Wolverhampton Low-Level Station, terminating point for many expresses from London and the south. Birmingham Snow Hill, 7008 Swansea Castle brings in a train including Southern Region wooden-bodied saloons, very possibly the through service which used to run during the summer months to Hastings, Eastbourne and Brighton via Reading and Redhill. "6021 King Richard II sets off for London Paddington. In later years the Kings didn't usually work north of Wolverhampton. The spaciousness of the old Snow Hill station shows up well as 6934 Beechamwell Hall runs through on a fitted goods. Snow Hill lost its mainline status in 1968 and its remaining suburban services 4 years later. In 1987, however, a new Snow Hill opened on the same site for commuter services from south of the city operated by West Midlands PTE. And while Snow Hill may not see trains like this again, the 12 miles of former Great Western track to Wolverhampton are now being relayed, with additional stations as part of the PTE's expanding Centro network. The Great Western's superb four-track formation shows to advantage at Bentley Heath, between Widney Manor and Knowle and Dorridge. Near the same point, a Hall heads a Saturdays-only holiday train for the Southern region. A two-car DMU plus a single-car unit passes on a Birmingham-bound local. Another Hall with the Saturdays only working. The second carriage is a Southern Region restaurant car. Here's a holiday train returning to Birmingham and Wolverhampton from the Southern Region. An evening commuter train terminating at Lapworth is hauled by a large Prairie Tank 4111. Sunday the 28th of April 1963, and the only surviving King, 6018 King Henry VI, is brought out of store and fettled up for one last run, an SLS special to Swindon and back. All the rest of the class had been withdrawn during 1962. A Wolves vs Portsmouth football fixture brings a splendid all-Southern rake, with 340-88-213 Squadron and mixed Mark I and Southern Railway stock, including a wooden-bodied dining car. A short while later comes another Light Pacific on a second Pompey special. And finally at Bentley Heath, 9F 92224 on an up freight. Near Lapworth, a very grimy Grange, minus nameplates, heads a summer Saturday extra for the south coast. Rowington Troughs between Lapworth and Hatton, 5992 lacks its Horton Hall nameplates. Another grimy nameless Grange. An LMS Black 5. Even in the early 1960s there was plenty of steam action to enjoy. The Well Troll wagon makes an ideal shower bath as this hall fills its tender. A Stania 8F in much more respectable condition. A load of new Rover cars from Nolan Dorridge Terminal bound for Cowley. One of the main stopping points on the Birmingham to Oxford line is Leamington Spa. There were once two passenger stations here side by side, but only the Great Western one survives today. The prototype Hawksworth County 460, not looking in the best of condition. These handsome machines, introduced in 1946 as Swindon's last express design, weren't considered its most successful. Indeed, construction of the much older Castle and modified Hall classes still continued after the batch of 30 counties was completed. Note again that this is a through working to the southern. 5022 Wigmore Castle heads north. King 6016 departs from Leamington with a Birkenhead Paddington Express. This will call at Banbury and then take the direct route to London via Bicester. King Richard I finds his feet on a following service. For most of their lives, the Kings were shedded at either Old Oak Common, Wolverhampton or Plymouth Lara. In the years up to their withdrawal in 1962, with Lara dieselised, their main work lay here on the Birmingham Road, which was then busy with extra traffic as electrification had begun on the LM line out of Euston. Banbury in the summer of 1964, with a northbound express arriving behind 6923 Croxteth Hall. Notice the clock on a pillar to the left of the train as it approaches. A long freight heads south as 6855 Satan Grange runs in. In the 1950s, Banbury was the busiest freight interchange on the whole of the western region. Pigeon vans of LNER design recall a traffic once familiar at this station. Another grimy Grange heads the train. This 9F from Nottingham's Annesley Shed has brought its holiday relief down the link line from Culworth Junction on the Old Great Central. Summer 1964 and the bully Light Pacific Dorchester is ready to set off for home ground with a through train from the northeast, also via the Great Central. A Hall backs down to take over another express that has come through from the north. These workings continued until September of 1966, when much of the Great Central closed and the cross-country trains it carried were rerouted via Birmingham. After that, Banbury lost much of its importance as a junction. Princess Risborough on the 31st of March 1965, with Black 545335 on an up parcels for London Marylebone. Large Prairie Tank 6126 saunters in with a featherweight off the Oxford branch, which had lost its passenger service 2 years earlier. Until a few years ago, a 6-mile stub remained open to serve the oil terminal at Thame. A year earlier, in April 1964, sister engine 6143 comes by on the main line with an up freight. Back now to March 1965, as 280-3859 inches past Princess Risborough Down platform, the driver hoping the home signal will clear before his loose-coupled train comes to a complete stand. The signal does clear, and 3859 gathers the couplings as the train eases across onto the main line for its journey north. The tall starting signal beyond the box has cleared too. On the extreme left, the branch line swings away towards Oxford. Now comes the prototype 9F 92000 with a lengthy rake of empty mineral wagons. Withdrawal of this fine class, still being built only 5 years earlier, was already underway, and 92000 itself had less than 4 months left to live. Now to Ashchurch Station, on the nearby main line from Birmingham to Bristol, seen here in 1963. This typical Midland station was once a junction for long-defunct branches to Malvern and Evesham. It closed altogether in 1971, but is due to reopen for mainline services in 1997. Next station to the north, via the Midland direct route, is Bromsgrove, at the foot of the famous Lickey Incline. Standard Class 5 460-73068 heads a stopper towards its hometown of Bristol. From 1956, the Western region painted its Standard 5s in lined green, so the Bristol Barrow Road engines acquired this livery some 2 years later, when the shed became Western Territory. Jubilees were very much a feature of this line, though 45668 Madden only joined the regular allocation late in the day. Banking engines stationed at Bromsgrove, the most famous was surely Big Bertha, the Fowler 010 built in 1919 especially for the job. These scenes date from 1947, with the engine carrying its final LMS number 22290. Big Bertha's massive boiler and inclined cylinders gave her exceptional power and a most impressive appearance. She was finally withdrawn in May 1956, and the big banker slot was thereafter filled by a 9F. 92229 was one of the shortest lived of the whole class, with just 6 years and 4 months from construction to withdrawal. The Western region's Hawksworth pannier tanks began arriving at the end of 1956, with numbers 8400 to 8406 being drafted in from sheds all over the region. They replaced the ageing Midland Ginty tanks, which had held down the job since before the war. Midland purists may have decried this invasion of their line by the products of Swindon, but even they had to admit that these chunky machines looked every inch the part. platform ends at Bromsgrove, the Lickey Incline rises dead straight at 1 in 37.5 for a fraction over 2 miles. It was opened early in the railway age, in 1841, against the advice of both Brunel and George Stephenson, who warned that such a steep grade would prove unworkable. The sight and sound of steam locomotives proving them wrong made a spectacular show for over a century. Note the suburban non-corridor coach behind the tender, the type rapidly becoming obsolete by this time in the 1960s. A 4F makes slow but steady headway up the bank. Bare trees and frosty fields show that in early spring of 1963, the long winter just ending has still not fully released its grip. F 92165 is making good speed with a heavy train of loaded oil tanks, very probably from the Avonmouth refinery near Bristol. Reason for the train's brisk pace? It's managed to bag no less than 4 bankers. The combined tractive effort of these is well over twice that of the 9F at the front. The next train up is another very substantial freight, and the 8F at the front is clearly struggling. Only one banker here, the previous train having scooped the pool. The usual allocation of bankers at Bromsgrove at this period was one heavyweight 9F and some half a dozen tankers. Sensible rationing of these resources was called for, the duty foreman not only noting each train's weight, train engine, urgency and so on, but also liaising with control, at least in theory, as to what was coming next, and next after that. These 4 are badly needed back at base. Jubilee 45690 Leander, one of Bristol Barrow Road's long-time stalwarts, will have little idea of the fame that lies in store as she heads this 3-coach local. Bankers apart, Great Western engines appeared on the Lickey only in the final years of steam. A Grange heads a freight from the Worcester direction. 2 more products of Swindon are assisting at the rear. The Midland Railway may have won the Battle of the Gauges on this line over a century before, but the Western was able to put in something of a last showing before the new era finally swept the old rivalries away. A double chimney 9F eases steadily down the bank as a diesel-hauled freight tackles the ascent. Severe speed restrictions applied to descending freight trains, even when fitted with continuous brakes. From Blackwell Station at the top of the bank, the steepness of the gradient shows most vividly. The station here closed in April 1966. Blackwell Signal Box had a whole series of special regulations and bell codes concerning the movements of banking engines. After closure by British Railways in the mid-1960s, the newly formed Severn Valley Railway had to overcome many initial teething problems, including a legal battle with the local council to obtain the light railway orders and objections from a small but vociferous group of residents. The first section from Bridgnorth to Hampton Road was reopened in 1970. Hunslet-built ex-Army saddle tank 193 was proving to be a useful arrival on the scene when these shots were filmed in 1971. 45110 was built in 1935, and after many years based at Holyhead, transferred to various sheds in the northwest, arriving finally at the end of steam in 1968 at Lostock Hall. The loco worked one of the infamous Farewell to Steam tours and was purchased by the Stanier Black 5 Preservation Society. After being stored briefly at Ashford, it was moved to the Severn Valley in August 1970 and was then restored to BR Black livery and named in September 1971. Today, few would dispute that the Bridgnorth to Kidderminster Severn Valley Railway has become one of Britain's most successful and well-established private steam railways. The line now boasts an impressive locomotive fleet and is often used as a base for visiting engines certified for mainline running, including A4 Pacific Union of South Africa. The attractive rural tranquillity just south of Bridgnorth at Oldbury belies the line's industrial roots. The raison d'etre of the line's construction was mining and industrial development at Ironbridge and Coalbrookdale further north. The idyllic setting of Highley Station and its thorough restoration typify the charm of the old rural branch line scene that's helped to win the coveted Best Preserved Station award in past years. LMS-designed small Ivard 46443 was purchased in working order by Richard Wilcox in April 1967. It's an extremely economical loco, ideally suited to this kind of stopping passenger work, and has clocked up a huge mileage over the years. The successful and professional day-to-day operations make it easy to forget the tremendous achievements of the Severn Valley Railway over the years, including the extensions, first to Highley, then to Bewdley, and finally to Kidderminster. Arley, the next station south, is another winner of the Best Preserved Station award and is well situated as a starting point for numerous riverside walks and consequently a popular destination for Severn Valley passengers. Most trains cross here. The location has been used on many occasions by film companies wanting an authentic period scene, including the recent BBC comedy series Oh Dr. Beeching. The graceful Victoria Bridge carries the preserved railway over the River Severn, just to the south of Arley. Fortunately, there are few other major engineering works on the route, enabling the costs of restoration and maintenance to be kept relatively modest. The Severn Valley has always been an innovator. Today there's a turntable at Kidderminster to even out loco tyre wear, and fundraising is now underway to provide another at Bridgenorth, which should eliminate tender first running altogether. Bewdley was the southern terminus of the line from 1974 until 1984, when a successful share issue enabled purchase of the line to Kidderminster. Today Bewdley is still the base for a small number of locomotives and carriages. As a picturesque waterfront town on the line's namesake river, it's a popular destination and source of not inconsiderable revenue. Bradley Manor is one of the oldest surviving members of the class and was built in 1938. It's hard to believe now, but when this fine loco first arrived on the Severn Valley Railway, it was considered beyond realistic repair and only suitable for spare parts. The line has always tried to run rakes of matching liveried coaches, and finance is now being sought for undercover storage for the collection of historic coaching stock, such as the second vehicle of this train, an early BR prototype and forerunner of the Mark II series. But it's the ex-Great Western locos which really catch the atmosphere of the original operations in this part of the Midlands so well. And 7802, approaching Bewdley with late 1950s BR livery with blood and custard Mark Is, represents preservation at its absolute finest. Apart from the colour film quality we now take for granted, there's no way of telling that this scene was filmed in 1999 and not 1959. The standard tank this time is 80098 from the Midland Railway Centre in Derbyshire. A local approaches Foley Park, two Great Western bogies behind Hawksworth outside cylinder pannier tank 1501. Basically a shunting design, this 1949 engine was withdrawn by BR in 1961, but worked for the National Coal Board at Kearsley near Coventry until coming to the Severn Valley in 1970. Opened in 1985, the newly built terminus at Kidderminster was the final piece in the Severn Valley's marketing strategy. Most other private lines can only dream of the sophisticated facilities here, which includes two full-length platform faces and a huge public car park, plus a superb station buffet and bar. Kidderminster is also home to a well-equipped carriage and wagon workshop, and the adjacent Worcester-Birmingham Mainline, which allows the transfer of locos and rolling stock when necessary. With only a year left to run on its current boiler certificate, the K4, which was designed for Scotland's West Highland Line, looks perfectly at home heading this immaculate ex-Great Western diner train into Kidderminster. This highly saleable package, which combines steam, scenery, luxurious surroundings and good food, is an excellent example of just how far many successful private steam lines marketing operations have come since the pioneer days of preservation. The Midland Railway Centre, on the Nottinghamshire-Derbyshire border, boasts an extensive collection of ex-BR diesel locomotives, as well as several generations of steam. The Midland Railway Trust has relayed some 3.5 miles of the former cross-country route from Piebridge to Ambergate. Authentic Midland Railway lower quadrant signalling enhances the period atmosphere here at Swanwick Junction. Reconstructed station at Butterley is an architectural delight, and this is also the main operating centre for the line. This BR Standard Class 4 MT is one of the newer steam locomotives based on the line. It was built in 1954 and worked on BR for little more than a decade before passing into preservation. The railway operates every Sunday and bank holiday weekends throughout the year, increasing to a daily service during school holiday periods. An unusual feature of the line is this causeway across the Butterley Reservoir, giving access to the present terminus at Hammersmith. Barrow Hill Roundhouse near Chesterfield has been preserved as a locomotive depot and provides an authentic setting to view locomotives. Kevin Stuthler draws a visiting B12 460 onto the turntable.
We've got no choice to tell them where it's got to go on. There's a lovely reflective effect on the footplate, look.
Barrow Hill, for most of its life, was home for freight engines servicing nearby collieries and other industries. The Roundhouse, with storage tracks leading from a central turntable, was a common loco shed arrangement. The atmosphere inside, as locos are steamed and prepared, is uniquely tangible, if not exactly healthy, though many rail fans would claim that steam locomotive smoke is beneficial to the lungs. The depot remained in use well into the diesel era, though latterly only for stabling diesels between jobs and for train crews signing on duty. Midland Railway Tank 41708 is no stranger to Barrow Hill, as it was once one of the resident shunters at nearby Staveley Ironworks, where the Midland Railway had a 99-year contract to provide shunting engines. This design formed the basis of the later Ginty 060 tank engine, built in their hundreds as the LMS standard shunter. The B12 was a Great Eastern Railway design for working expresses between London and Harwich, and was once considered to be the last word in express passenger locomotive design. 61572 has been renumbered as 61574 for photographic purposes. Many B12s, including this one, were rebuilt by Sir Nigel Gresley with larger boilers. This engine is the only survivor. Many of the unrebuilt examples finished their careers working secondary services far from home in the northeast of Scotland. But it's goods engines that are most appropriate for Barrow Hill. Barrow Hill is a depot and not a working tourist railway. But there is enough space to run short demonstration freight trains, like this period example behind the resident Johnson 1F tank. The same short train is now in the hands of a North Eastern Railway Y7 040 tank and an Austerity 060 saddle tank, a class built in large numbers for industry, some of which found their way into the BR fleet. Another private line that certainly knows how to successfully market itself is the Great Central Railway, linking Loughborough with Leicester. Running over part of the former Marylebone to Sheffield Mainline, the Great Central, with the backing of the Mainline Steam Trust, aspires to recreate the atmosphere of mainline steam, running large engines over double-track line. Although running through a pleasant enough rural landscape, the Great Central doesn't have the dramatic scenic virtues of, say, the North Yorkshire Moors Railway, and must rely on some very professional marketing to attract customers. The Great Central regards enthusiasts as important customers and quotes up to 60% of its passengers as falling into this category. While it would be unfair to say that other lines didn't attempt to please steam fans, this aspect is perhaps more important to the Great Central, given its less dramatic scenic aspects. Accurately recreating the days when Western Region 460s worked holiday expresses south from Nottingham Victoria to the south and west, with a slack haul accelerates a southbound train over the newly installed double-track section. Witherslack Hall is no stranger to the line, as shortly after being built it actually worked over Great Central Metals during the famous 1948 locomotive exchanges. Another of the line's major projects has been the provision of additional siding accommodation at Switherland to provide storage space for both passenger and freight stock, including the splendid Steam Railway sponsored wind cutter rake of 16-ton mineral wagons. Rothley Station has been faithfully restored, complete with authentic signal box and many carefully chosen items of station furniture. The overall effect is to recreate this typical Great Central Island station much as it would have looked when it was first opened in 1899. The use of visiting locos, like this standard Class 4 from the East Somerset Railway, which is on extended loan, is a surefire way to generate extra interest. Rothley was the limit of operations until the extension to Leicester North was opened in 1991. One of the line's long-term ambitions is to reopen all the way to Nottingham, and there's already a group looking at the feasibility of this particular objective. Another stalwart is 8F48305. Built at Crewe in 1943, the loco is currently owned by Roger Hibbert. Although the Great Central is already famous for its double-track section, the second line has still to be relayed over the vast majority of the route, and some parts still retain the feel of an attractive secondary main line. BR Black Liveried 6990, with its appropriate train of assorted BR liveried coaches, completes the scene. The Swindon-built Standard 4, restored to its BR appearance, heads another assorted rake of coaches, including an ex-London and North Eastern catering vehicle. Once a regular mainline performer, the National Railway Museum-owned loco, Sir Lamille, is now in the custody of the 5305 Preservation Group, which moved its operational base from Humberside to Loughborough. Mainline steam operations facing an increasingly uncertain future, the long-term aims of the Great Central, with its double-track running, are certainly becoming more and more attractive. For many rail fans, there's no doubt that the ultimate thrill would be to actually drive a steam loco. With many private lines now offering footplate experience courses, we decided to join two enthusiasts to see exactly what you get for your money. These footplate experience courses start at around £200, but you can spend over £1,000 if you want the line to yourself for the day. After a conducted tour of the loco shed and a brief explanatory chat to familiarise the trainees with operations at Loughborough, it'll be straight out onto the main line. It's a big change from the early days of preservation, when the working footplate had to be reserved strictly for crews with plenty of experience, and the only way to learn to drive was the hard way, by working your way up from a cleaner through to fireman. Of course, as far as public service trains on private steam railways are concerned, nothing's changed. The driver must be fully competent and experienced. But the big difference in recent years are the multitude of these hands-on courses, which have opened up the chance to drive a steam loco, to anyone with the money. Driver Tony Wheelhouse initially eases the 9F away from Loughborough. then it's time for the magic words.
Right, me out, it's all yours. Any peculiarities in the railroad? No, it's dead straight, no filters like that.
For 78-year-old Doug, it's just like turning back the clock.
I started as a cleaning crew in 1935. I worked on the railways. The overhaul is to January 1982. Also the driver, cleaner, fireman, driver.
So what's he doing back on the footplate after such a long break?
It happened to be my birthday, and I didn't know till about a week or so ago that I was coming. I'm 101% a railwayman, and always have been. I love railways. I've loved my life on the railways.
Of course, most trainees won't have had anything like the experience of Doug and will need a lot more advice on the use of the basic controls like the regulator and reverser from driver Tony Wheelhouse.
Straight down to the end of the platform, stop, watch the transfer, and then I'll get the stick off the door and he'll pull the road off for you. I wanted to clear the tube though.
So, what's it like being in the driver's seat again?
Oh, marvellous. Nothing, come back naturally, doesn't it? After you've had 40 odd years, it should do. Even though there's been a 15-year break since I actually finished. I've been retired 15 years, like.
Lovely old job. That's it, we can't go any further, me out.
Careful marketing of day courses like this means that the line's resources can be fully and profitably utilised at times when there aren't any normal service trains. After enjoying the run in the fireman's seat, Nigel Dalton now eagerly awaits his turn at the regulator. He's also here for a very similar reason to Doug.
A birthday present for my wife. I had a big O type birthday recently, and actually it was back in September, so I was very pleased to have this, and I found I got a year to use the event.
We wondered if Nigel felt a little apprehensive about his first footplate experience.
I suppose so, yes. I felt almost, I don't know, you perhaps feel something's expected of you, I think. And I was very pleased when I got here to find it's very much the opposite. There's nothing expected of you, so you enjoy it, you relax. And it's a long time since I've moved a steam engine, and unlike Doug here, who's spent a lifetime doing it, I just had a year as an engine cleaner back in the 60s, and I used to unofficially move some of the engines around the yard, with the nod of the drivers, and it's a feeling you never forget, and today it was there. It was just like yesterday, 30 years ago. I must say the crew were excellent, and we felt like part of a team straight away, which was nice. Yeah.
register 2 round trips on the footplate, with each person getting the chance to drive in both directions. It's soon time to hand over to another crew who'll be in charge of the next group. Britain's steepest mainline gradient, the Lickey Incline, is scarcely noticed by today's passengers, as trains glide effortlessly up the once notorious 1 in 37. The Lickey provides the shortest railway route between Birmingham and Worcester and is well used by a mixture of local, semi-fast and intercity cross-country services. Among the daytime freight services routed via the Lickey Incline is this trainload of pressurised gas tanks from Baglan Bay to Humber. Nowadays, there's no regular banker on the Lickey, and the Baglan Bay tanks are expected to make it to the top unaided. Not an easy task for a single Class 37. The alternative route, via Droitwich, is used by some trains between the West Midlands and South Wales, including this morning trainload of empty steel carriers from Roundhouse to Margam. Droitwich remains a delightful oasis of Great Western semaphores. The Midland Mainline, as its name implies, slices through the area on its way from London St Pancras, through Derby and Nottingham to Sheffield and beyond. The backbone of the fleet is the high-speed train, probably BR's most successful diesel train ever in terms of speed and mileage. It was the first train in Britain to routinely clock up speeds of 125 miles per hour. The HST fleet has been added to recently by new Meridian train sets, primarily intended for intermediate services. They're basically similar to Virgin Trains Voyager units, themselves no stranger to the Midlands. Meridians have a few modifications and detail differences. They are on the whole reliable and extremely nifty, though many people find the interiors rather cramped with insufficient luggage space. As well as 4 car sets, Midland Mainline also ordered 7 9-car sets. We do hope that you've enjoyed this programme. You'll find the rest of the ever-changing steam railway scene featured on the other volumes in the Steaming Around Britain series. Bye for now.